In general, I tend to look at YouTube first for answers because ideally there's a really well produced nerd about X that'll just blab about something and it holds my attention. It's just way more effective for me than to concentrate and focus on reading a long blog post about something. It just sucks the life out of me to just sit here and read a blog post. Twitter is very useful for me because basically from the day that I opened up a Twitter account over 10 years ago, whenever that was, building a set of human beings that I follow, right, that over time I generate trust with because I agree with what they say or whatnot. So I think there's an element to that where I learn a lot from general chatter and it's easy for me to consume and bite-sized. And sometimes somebody writes something where I'm like, oh, I trust that guy and he wrote this thing that's something relevant. And a lot of it is also asking questions to Slack groups or even posing questions on something like Twitter tends to reveal more. A lot of people post things on Twitter that are a statement. I feel like most tweets, there's not much to engage with. And it's always surprising that when you ask a question, you realize there's all sorts of people who are actually reading and consuming and want to help. Generally, I think people love to help. And Twitter is a place where you can ask a question and people can give you their 2 cents in a sentence or two. It's very efficient that way. There's a company called Upstream. It's basically a professional networking app that's entirely built around asks and needs. So anybody can just post basically a Twitter version of something they need help in, and people can just chime in. Generally, I think people who know about X are always happy to help people navigate X. It's just a matter of finding them. It's like Tim Ferriss, right? His time is limited. But something that he said in I believe his first book, The 4-Hour Workweek, you don't email the main person. You email like 2 or 3 people below them that nobody knows their name. You've just figure it out through Googling or LinkedIn or something. Their inboxes are pretty sane and they'll have equally as good advice as the famous person. It's like, sure, you want to email Elon Musk. There's probably a couple of names below Elon that are executive vice VPs or whatever that probably will answer your email. People focus so much on the famous people. And there's a lot of people who are just as knowledgeable that aren't famous that you can cold email them. I didn't email the founders of Kickstarter. I emailed anybody at Kickstarter that I had a mutual friend with. I'm not just a rando. You could ask that person will vouch for me. And they replied and I had a meeting and it went well. And so I think if and when people need help with something, they should think about who are the not famous people who are equally qualified to answer.